Well, good afternoon. We was at the bar last night talking about people we'd had disagreements with, and I pointed out that my daddy had a disagreement with the Queen of England back in 1961. He was at a remote Air Force base in Goose Bay, Labrador. Ain't never been there. Apparently there's a few nice people there, but I ain't never been there. And about midnight or 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, that local time, he was playing some records for the people what was still up and kind of mournful. And he was playing the great George Morgan's "You're the Only Good Thing That's Happened to Me." And before he put that record on, they didn't have no DVDs or CDs or 8-tracks back then. He reached over and flipped a switch on the military transmitter, what civilians can't afford and ain't supposed to have back then. And he apparently sent George Morgan's "You're the Only Good Thing That Happened to Me," and it bounced off the atmosphere with that powerful signal and knocked the BBC, that's that British radio channel what I ain't never listened to, off the air in Scotland. And apparently the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II, there must have been a first one somewhere, and she was a listener to the BBC, and the next thing she knows, she's listening to George Morgan, which I would think might be an improvement. And so the next day, the very next day, my daddy has this British major fly in to this remote base and tell my daddy, "Her Majesty does not care for "You're the Only Good Thing That's Happened to Me." And my daddy was kind of indignant about that. Turns out the Queen likes to listen to the BBC and not George Morgan. And my daddy was perplexed. And he found out the Queen of England outranks U.S. Air Force mess hall sergeant. And daddy was he said, "Look, we fought a revolution to get you people out of our business." And the major said, "You're in our business. You knocked BBC off the air. And by the way, your base is in Goose Bay, Labrador. That's part of Canada, and Canada cares a lot about what the Queen thinks, and it don't care nothing about what you think." My daddy thought that was wrong. He got his feelings hurt, and he wanted to send her a letter or call her and talk to her or meet her and talk to her about how important country music was to him and that base and the people flying overhead what listened to it. And the major said, "You can't get near the old girl. She don't want to talk about this. She just don't want to have BBC knocked off the air again." So my daddy was removed from that duty and just kept cooking food for people. But, I never disliked the Queen even after I heard that story. I figure it's a hard job. And she had some youngins that was a mess. I'd have whomped them upside the head if I'd been dealing with them. But that's the story about my daddy upsetting the Queen of England and losing the right to be a DJ in Goose Bay, Labrador.